I have confirmation that Mike is officially in our 97.3 ESPN Family Fantasy Football League. So Kaye is in. I am in. All right?
Good.
Now we're going to have weekly updates as far as what's going on and how well teams are doing here. But this is new territory for all of us. New territory for me, new territory for Mike. I don't know. I don't know how you judge fantasy leagues, right, when you come into brand new, when you haven't played with people before. I do that all the time. No, and that's the thing, Mike, is we welcome you in. Harry has refused to play in this fantasy league this year, so it's you and I and a bunch of people that we won't ever see.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Harry can have 5% of my winning. So
why? Just for being Harry?
No, so he gave up his spot, and I want him to root for somebody in this league. So there's the investment right there.
Harry's going to root for two people.
I root for Mike Kaye, and then if he wins, I get 5%.
Right.
So what do you give him?
Well, no. I'm saying Harry's going to root for two people. Whoever's paying him the most, like Kaye giving up 5%, and whoever's playing me each week.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll find joy in rooting for a team where you have money in either not invested as far as you, but points back, and me being upset that I lost.
Did you see what I just did without even realizing it? It's sort of like what Antonio Brown did with the helmet. He refused to wear the helmet, right?
And now you're in.
And now he got a helmet that's paying him to wear it. See, I refused to do the fantasy league, and now Kaye's giving me 5%.
You just turned into John Gruden, man.
Exactly.
What happened?
And
Kaye?
I didn't even need Rosenhaus for this deal.
Unbelievable.
How about that?
Do not enable this man, Mike.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
I hope he's really excited to win like $10. But
yes, I am.
I don't even know if there's money in this league.
Probably not.
We agreed last night if you actually were involved in the group chat, Eytan,
Clearly
a $25 buy-in.
95?
Wow.
25. 25.
Oh, all right.
25.
So are you aware of this, Mike, and are you okay with this?
Yeah, I'm really okay with winning other people's money. So yeah.
Okay.
Well, Mike's also okay with it because he's actually active in the group chat.
Yeah,
Eytan's been in there once and hasn't been back since.
He's probably active in the group chat last night as opposed to watching that god-awful fourth preseason game.
Well, he needs a healthy distraction from the game.
Exactly.
My goodness. All right, let's begin here. We had a disagreement to start the show. I don't think, and listen, I'm not saying this is a long-term issue. I'm not saying that there's cause for concern, ring the alarm. I'm just looking at one game and one game only. And it's trending towards Fletcher Cox not playing week 1. Mike, do you agree or disagree with that?
It's not looking great. It's not looking great. We were in the locker room the other day, and he was asked point blank, hey, we don't get to see you in the locker room. We don't get to see you on the practice field. What have you been doing behind the scenes to kind of, improve your status? And he basically said, hey, I'll talk to you guys next week. So not a great sign. But that said, the Eagles have fully prepared themselves for him not playing just in case. I mean, Malik Jackson's a former Pro Bowler. Timmy Jernigan's had an incredible training camp. They could get by with a game without Fletcher Cox, especially when they just named Eric Flowers. The Redskins just named Eric Flowers as the starting left guard. I think, Donald Penn is going to be their starting left tackle. I think the Redskins are a mess.
Their offensive line's a mess.
Yeah, I think the Eagles are capable of winning that game pretty heavily, even without Fletcher Cox. Once you get into kind of the mid-month when they have to go, to Atlanta in that second game, and they have to go to Green Bay in week 4, that's when you kind of worry. But if he has to miss week 1, I don't think it'll be that big of an issue because I've been told that Nigel Bradham is on track internally to play in week 1. It's the expectation that he'll play in week 1. So if they can get him back, that'll help.
All right, so he's on record as saying that he needs about a week to ramp up to be ready for game 1. We're still 9 days out. So this is still a possibility. You start seeing him going through regular practice, duties on, Monday, Tuesday. All things would then point to him probably playing, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I don't think needs a lot of prep time.
Right.
This is also a foot injury, So, I mean, it's not like he had to work on his hands or his timing or anything like that. Like, this is just going to be based on his comfort level. And I think if he can plant properly and get burst, then he is fine.
Was there a setback with this injury at all, Mike?
Not that we're aware of. He was out there practicing and working with a trainer for a while, and then he just left training camp practice for a couple of weeks. But Doug Peterson said that was part of the plan. And with the way that the Eagles guard injuries, it's kind of sounding like it was part of the plan. They want to keep us guessing, but I think he'll be okay long term.
Mike Kaye joining us at Mike_E_K, covers the Eagles, NFL for NJ.com. Mays and Eytan, of course, 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN app. What about the offensive line specifically not playing at all together, the expected 5 starters week 1, adding in the mix of Carson Wentz not playing as well and Carson not being out there? Not to say that this is, again, cause for major concern, but it kind of leads everybody to believe, Mike, that the Eagles are going to look sloppy for the first week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's expected in week 1 anyway. But, yeah, I think there is some reason for concern. We don't know if Brandon Brooks will play in week 1. Big V has played very well at right guard. He's kind of been one of the big surprises of the offseason. I think they'll be fine, but finding that chemistry, like you said, and that timing could be a little off. But we also have to remember Jason Kelsey's practiced and played with Carson Wentz for 4 years. Isaac Seumalo's been around for 4 years. Jason Peters has been around for 100 years. Lane Johnson's been around forever. So they know each other's timing. I mean, Big V played with Carson several times. You know what I mean? So it's not like they brought in a bunch of veterans who had never played together. This is a line that's practiced and played together for several years.
Hey, Mike, we're talking with Mike Kaye. NJ.com covers the Eagles on the Lighthouse Insurance guest line. What, if anything, was learned from last night's game? You're going to have to tell me because I didn't watch it.
The Eagles should definitely waive Clayton Thorson because they can definitely get him through waivers. That is a fact. There were some other rival radio station folks in the press box who were all for keeping 4 quarterbacks. I think that would be lunacy. Clayton Thorson isn't good. But you also have to kind of weigh the issues for the team. You know, this is a forward-thinking organization who is patient with draft picks, but also Doug Peterson's known as a quarterback guru, and for him to give up on a guy after a summer doesn't kind of play into his outlook. You know what I mean? You know, when you're drafting a guy on day 3, especially a quarterback, there's clearly flaws in his game and flaws in him as a prospect. So you expect to be patient with him. This was a long-term developmental process anyway. The difference now is once they brought in McCown, he and Thorson and Kessler basically got put on notice. And, you know, there's no room for a 4th quarterback on this roster with all the short-term injuries we've talked about. And Thorson, frankly, hasn't earned a spot. I don't even know if he's earned a spot on the practice squad. If all things were even and he was an undrafted rookie, he would probably be signing a contract with the XFL next week. So, you know, that's interesting. I think Deshaun Hall is a heck of a player. He was just owning 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string guys throughout that game last night, even after he had to leave temporarily for an injury checkup. Kevin Wilkins, the guy from Rutgers, he is really intriguing to me. He's had some really good practices, but last night he flashed a lot. Alex Singleton and TJ Edwards are 2 linebackers that may not make the team, but could definitely be claimed off waivers because they have a lot of potential on special teams and defense. And then I think we also learned that Matt Pryor is versatile, but he's not really good at any one position. He's kind of a master of none and really just a guy that fits body types for several different positions.
Wow, that's another draft pick. That and Thorson, right?
Yeah, 5th round. I mean, were you surprised at the round in which they selected him?
You're talking about Thorson.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I didn't really study him a ton coming into the draft.
Well, just the position, I think, Mike.
Yeah, like taking a quarterback that high.
Yeah, I mean, let's start there, and then I didn't mean to jump in, but let's start with the – keep going. I just meant the position as well.
I actually thought they'd target somebody like Trace McSorley there.
Okay. So still that position.
They definitely wanted to get a quarterback to push Sudfeld and a guy that would be there in case Sudfeld left next year. That was definitely a plan of theirs. They went after some veteran free agents early on in free agency, and the price was just too rich. So I knew they wanted to add another arm. Luis Perez was not going to cut it, and at the time they only had Wentz, Sudfeld, and Luis Perez. So I figured they were going to draft somebody. I was surprised when they traded back, though, in the 5th round, picked up a 7th-round pick. And I thought that was interesting. Oh, as we speak, the Bucs just cut Corey Nelson, the former free agent bust for the Eagles last year. It's not really
Bucs
coming up all Philadelphia. But anyway, my point to you is Thorson, once they drafted him, I watched 6 games of his. In fairness, 5 of them were after he suffered an ACL injury, but nothing on that tape showed anything other than, potential intangibles. He was not accurate. He looked lost at times in the pocket. I didn't see an NFL prospect there. So they clearly like his intangibles. They like his size. They like his college pedigree. They like his cadence, I've heard. So he's kind of like a shell of a prospect. And I think if you value him and you get him to the practice squad, maybe you give him another year to prove himself. But I really don't think that he is in their long-term plans if they do waive him.
All right.
Okay.
I'm resolved to the fact that Hollins is going to make the 5-receiver cut and Greg Ward is not. Do you think Greg Ward can pass through waivers and get to the practice squad again?
I do, but I'm also not 100. I don't feel very confident in Matt Hollins pick. Like, I put out the 53 right as the game was ending, and then we immediately went to a press conference where my beat partner, Zach Rosenblatt, asked Doug Peterson about Matt Hollins, and the coach gave a really lukewarm answer about Mac. So I'm interested to see what happens. I could see Mac Hollins making the initial 53-man roster, and then they claim a guy off waivers who's impressed them. The Ravens just cut Jalen Smith, a wide receiver from Louisville, who really impressed me during joint practices a couple of weeks ago. He could be a guy that they add. Remember, they traded for Rudy Ford, who's a very good gunner. And Mac Hollins' claim to fame is that he's a good gunner. Well, he's a good gunner. He's not a great gunner. And from everybody that I've talked to who works in Arizona, Rudy Ford's a great gunner. So in theory, he could take that spot. DeAndre Hall could be a guy that sneaks onto the 53-man roster if they don't trade him to the Jets because Joe Douglas loves him. I don't think Mac Hollins is as safe as we've initially thought.
Okay.
Is there anybody else? Well, we've brought up Wisniewski a bunch in interviews, and he's kind of been in the background as far as names that have been discussed because Mac Hollins and Deshaun Hall and Ward have been thrown around there. But is that pretty much solidified?
I saw that they might keep up to 10 offensive linemen.
Well, that's
so that
why that would include Wiz, right?
Yeah.
So here's the my thought process on Wiz. I think he will be on the team this year. I would not be shocked if they cut him this weekend, because if they bring him back after week 1, his contract isn't guaranteed. If he's on the week 1 roster, his contract becomes guaranteed. If you cut him, you're still paying him. So I could see a scenario where they keep somebody like Nate Herbig as the emergency center or the center that they use in practice for week 1, and then they eventually cut him to bring back Wisniewski. I think they could do something similar with Orlando Scandrick and Jonathan Cyprien. Just the way how he operates. It seems like he's very forward-thinking when it comes to being creative. Matt Pryor's the guy that I put on my 53, but I'm not feeling confident in him either. I think they really like Nate Herbig quite a bit. I don't know if they'll keep him on the 53, but if they cut Wisniewski, it would make sense to keep him as a second center in practice, because Isaac Seumalo would be the backup center, but he would obviously be practicing with left guard in practice sessions. So I think that would be interesting.
I'm sorry, Mike. Quick question for you. You have $100, all right? And picture it here like you're at the beautiful sports book at Parks Casino. We'll get you up here one day when it's not a tight day and your colleague Zach's not flying out to South Beach to enjoy the final days of his vacation and you're covering 16 different roles like you are today. But you have $100. What do you feel more confident in? Fletcher Cox not playing, like this bet, Fletcher Cox won't play week 1, or the Eagles will beat the Skins by more than 9 points?
The Eagles will beat the Skins more than 9 points. I feel really good about that. I feel very good about that.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
I like that because I have both in front of me. Now I'm going to go with that.
Well, I'm just looking here. Like, let's just say Hollins doesn't make the team. And Pryor. I mean, you got guys, these draft picks, like Pumphrey. He's gone. He's done. Thorson, Pryor, Hollins. And maybe there's some middle-round draft picks that they are whiffing on.
Well, is that going to be how it's looked at, Mike? Or do you look at some of the heavier picks, meaning better picks that they've gotten if it's ahead or below? I mean, I guess to your point, like Wendell Smallwood, right, Josh?
Yeah, he's another one.
Yeah. Well, Josh Adams not, but Smallwood, yeah. I mean, do you
Smallwood,
think that's going to be a
him.
conversation, or is that just what good teams do, Mike? Recognize that by cutting fat, you might have to cut some bigger pieces like a third or fourth rounder.
Well, look at what Bill Belichick does with every DB he drafts on day 2. He just traded Duke Dawson to the Broncos for a travel thermos. I mean, like, this happens around the league, and good teams, recognize that they don't have good players, and they get rid of them, and they fill them with better players. Sometimes they're patient with guys. It depends on a position. An offensive lineman you're going to be more patient on because you trust Jeff Stoutland. A position like running back, it's a position that's not heavily valued, so you don't really have time to be patient. I just think it depends on the position. I also think coming in with fresh eyes, Joe Douglas received a ton of credit for his ability to build a strong roster. There are some huge whiffs from a draft pick perspective that I think him leaving is going to shine a light on. I mean, obviously it's a collaborative effort, but I think Joe Douglas got a ton of praise, and a lot of his optics were, hey, I know this guy, let's bring him in. Or, hey, I like this guy, he's got one intriguing trait, let's bring him in. And he doesn't work out. So, I think Howie might not get as much heat for that because Joe Douglas was so integral in the process. So it's interesting. That's an interesting question. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud the idea of cutting your losses and realizing, hey, we're not going to just keep this guy because he was a draft pick if he can't play. But I'm more the other side of missing, in the player evaluation at the draft time. That's
but
what
it's not hurting you. I think
I
that's
know.
the point, right? That it's not hurting you. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Bill Belichick does, not to bring him up again, but
no, keep doing it. He's a great example.
No, he is. I mean, he brings in a lot of veterans. Look at all the wide receivers he's brought in. He's a terrible wide receiver. He's terrible at drafting wide receivers, but he's brought in guys like Danny Amendola, Chris Hogan, Josh Gordon,
Edelman,
Randy Moss. Meanwhile, he's drafting guys like Chad Jackson and Philip Dorsett. You know what I mean? So he's just been a terrible drafter of wide receivers and DBs outside of, McCourty, and I guess you could say Patrick Chung's done really well at second term. But, they're very good at taking in advantage of that stuff and finding veterans to fill those needs. Some guys are bad evaluators at certain positions. It happens. I was in Jacksonville where Dave Caldwell didn't do a very good job evaluating quarterbacks, but he could scout linebackers and defensive ends all day. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Mike, we appreciate it, man. We'll chat next week. You'll already have your team drafted. I'd ask who you're taking in the first round, but you're not giving away any secrets.
Do you know when you're picking yet? Has that been established?
I'm sure Josh is rigging it right now.
Yeah.
First of all, Mike, you might need to let Eytan know the day and the time of the draft since he's not in the group chat very often.
Oh, man. Well, actually, if I'm on next Thursday, it'll be before the draft because the draft's, I believe, at 8 o'clock, right?
Wednesday.
Oh, is it Wednesday? Oh, man, maybe I need to get back on the group chat. But let me tell you something. The Charleston Chews are coming for you guys really hard, and they are going to win this league.
I'm on the Charleston Chews. I'm bullish.
I'm sure you
I
are.
got 5% reason to be bullish on the Charleston.
I'm sure
Chiefs.
you are. See
That's
what
right.
you've started, Mike. You offer him what is a Shark Tank? 5% of your equity and $200,000 and you Kevin O'Leary?
I tell you, this sounds like a disoriented league. Nobody's on the group chat. Nobody knows when the draft
Right.
is.
I mean, you're painting me as somebody who's not paying attention to anything. You think Ryan Rothstein knows what the hell's going on?
He's all over the group
Absolutely
chat. Ryan's all over it.
Mike, we love you, man. Thank you. We'll chat next week.
Thanks, Mike.
At Mike_E_K, NJ.com's finest, covers the Eagles, NFL as well, and now in the 97.3 ESPN Fantasy League.